All right, so today we're diving deep into something you all specifically asked for, autism spectrum disorder.
Yep. We're going to unpack a whole lot from this book, Understanding Autism, a comprehensive guide for beginners.
It's going to be interesting, especially for those who might think ASD is, a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely not. No way. It's definitely a spectrum, meaning it presents so differently from person to person.
Right, and that could be a surprise for some people, I bet.
Yeah, for sure, because at its core, autism is about differences in how people communicate and socialize, and even how they behave.
So let's break it down a bit. What are some of those, key things that might point towards someone being on the spectrum?
Well, you might see someone having trouble with social cues, like reading facial expressions. Maybe they don't get sarcasm.
Yeah, sarcasm can be tough, even for folks not on the spectrum.
It really can be. And they might struggle with conversations too, maybe find it hard to make eye contact.
Right, eye contact can be really difficult for some.
Absolutely. And then there are those sensory sensitivities, things like everyday sounds, bright lights, certain textures. Those can be just overwhelming.
I remember that part in the book about the child who had a total meltdown because of how loud the classroom was.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Really drives home the intensity of those sensory experiences.
Exactly. And then on the flip side, you have someone like Temple Grandin, a super successful autistic scientist.
Oh, yeah, I know about her.
She describes her thinking as in pictures. Fascinating, right?
Oh, yeah.
And she found social stuff confusing, but excelled in visual fields like designing livestock facilities. See? It's that vast spectrum in action.
Wow, talk about a range. That's an awesome example.
Yeah.
Okay, so getting into the nitty-gritty a bit, what causes autism? Like, is there a single gene or a specific event?
That's the million-dollar question, and scientists are still working on it. It's less about one single cause and more about a mix of genetics and environmental stuff.
Kind of a nature and nurture thing going on?
Exactly, but it's important to remember just how prevalent it is. In the U.S. alone, around 1 in 44 kids get an ASD diagnosis.
Wow, that really puts it into perspective, doesn't it?
Definitely, and it makes awareness and understanding even more important.
Absolutely. So how is autism actually diagnosed? What should parents, keep an eye out for?
Well, usually it happens in early childhood, and that early intervention is key, really.
Yeah, the earlier the better, right?
Absolutely. Imagine a parent noticing their baby isn't responding to their name or barely makes eye contact. Those could be those early red flags.
And when it comes to toddlers, are there like specific behaviors that stand out?
Yeah, as toddlers grow, you might see things like delays in speech development, or they might do repetitive movements like flapping their hands.
Those can be concerning for sure.
They can be, but it's important to remember those are just potential signs. If parents have any worries at all, they should definitely talk to a healthcare professional, get a proper evaluation.
Absolutely. Always better to be safe than sorry. Now, once a diagnosis is made, what kind of support systems are out there?
That's where individualized education programs or IEPs come in.
IEPs, okay.
Think of those as like a personalized roadmap for a child's education.
That makes sense.
They lay out specific goals, accommodations, and all the support services tailored to that child's needs. Really helpful.
And the book also really highlights those incredible benefits of therapies like speech therapy and occupational therapy.
Absolutely. Speech therapy is amazing for communication skills,
Mm.
and occupational therapy can work on things like fine motor skills and sensory processing.
Yeah, those are so important.
They really are. It's all about giving individuals those tools they need to navigate the world, make life easier.
It makes me think about how important it is to create those supportive environments, like those sensory-friendly spaces.
Oh, for sure. Having quiet zones, using visual aids, and keeping things structured and routine-based, that can really reduce anxiety for a lot of folks on the spectrum.
It's about meeting them where they're at,
Yeah.
really.
Exactly. Understanding and adapting to those needs makes such a difference.
The book had some great advice for families and caregivers. What really stuck with you?
The emphasis on patience and empathy, that was huge. It's vital to remember that autistic individuals experience the world differently. Instead of trying to fix them, we should focus on understanding and celebrating their differences.
That's a great point.
It's about embracing neurodiversity, appreciating that everyone's wired differently.
Absolutely. And, caring for someone on the spectrum can be a lot. It's demanding. The book suggests finding support networks or even therapy for the caregiver to help manage that stress.
Self-care for caregivers is so important, definitely.
Yeah, you got to take care of yourself, too.
Exactly. And then there's advocacy. Can't forget about that. Speaking up, raising awareness, challenging those misconceptions, all crucial to building a more inclusive society.
For sure. Advocacy is powerful stuff.
It really is.
Before we finish up this deep dive, the guide actually recommends some other books, and they each give a really unique perspective on autism, which is cool. Yeah, some great reads in there.
Like The Reason I Jump by Naoki Higashida.
Oh, that one's incredible. It's written by a nonverbal autistic individual, gives you a firsthand look into their thoughts and experiences. Really powerful stuff.
It's amazing to get those firsthand accounts.
It really is.
Then there's Neurotribes by Steve Silberman, which goes deep into the history of how we even understand autism, you know?
Oh, yeah, that one challenges a lot of those traditional narratives and highlights how autism advocacy has evolved over time.
Super interesting stuff. And for a more practical guide, there's Barry Present's Uniquely Human. It's full of tips and strategies for supporting individuals on the spectrum.
Oh, that's a good one.
It emphasizes a strengths-based perspective, which is awesome, focusing on potential rather than deficits.
Love that approach.
And of course, we got to mention Temple Grandin's Thinking in Pictures, her own journey as an autistic scientist and advocate.
A groundbreaking work for sure.
Definitely. So,
Yeah.
wrapping up this deep dive, it all boils down to understanding and acceptance, right?
Each autistic individual is unique, and embracing those differences is key.
Couldn't agree more. And even those small efforts to be more inclusive, they can make a big difference, a ripple effect.
So true. So here's a little something to ponder as you go about your day. How can you create a more inclusive space for individuals on the spectrum?
That's a good one.
Maybe it's a small gesture, a conscious effort to understand, or even just being willing to challenge those preconceived notions.
Every bit helps.
Exactly. Every step counts. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks everyone.